of course, Magdalene, we know, is the weeping Madonna, right? All she does is cry. And so people don't understand, you know, us women, if we cry all the time, just say, I connect to the weeping Madonna, what do you want? So, I mean, it's just like, let me freaking cry. So, I mean, I cried for like 20 years straight. It's like I was detoxing a lot of the emotional body of the planet. And, I mean, it just fell out of my face, even if I didn't even know why. So, anyway, so he, you know, comes along and he's really sent to help this process. And, you know, the cross is connected to the tree of life. And the sacrifice that he made is really incredibly intense, and they both go through. I mean, when she goes into the underworld, she's dealing with the same kind of thing. And a lot of Gnostics or you know, mystics really see the feminine on the cross, has been on the cross since the beginning. He comes along and does a part of what she's been doing in order to help man and help, you know, everybody kind of break free of the demiurge's control. And of course, they've rewritten things, but you know, those who really understand the Bible and can decode it, like one of Alfred's friends, who he did an article about, can actually see that it's telling a different story. If one doesn't turn it into a belief system, it actually logs all of this. And the New Testament talks a lot more about his life and their connection. And of course, they created sacred union. And this left a mark, and this planted a seed. So anyway, like I said, it connects to seasons and everything like that. And then you know, we have Avalon. I mean, that's a really nice place. Okay, and then here's Venus and Mars, right? Okay, so let's get into Mars a little bit, because why was I recruited to Mars? I have such a connection to the Venus energy, right? So it was weird and kind of symbolic that there would be some sort of agenda to get me to Mars, especially when they said that it had to do with these archetypes. It's one thing for them to say, oh, well, you're an Eisenhower, or, you know, this and that. I mean, those reasons might have been there, but the agent that they set me up with, who, like I said, was an organic being unless he was triggered, was talking about being connected to Osiris, Oberon, and Orion. And so I was like, okay, Osiris, and it connects to Isis. And one time during this whole process, I looked on a website that was talking about Isis and Osiris reseeding a new civilization on Mars. It was this whole website all about getting this energy to Mars to reseed a new civilization. So I was like, well, that's weird. So, you know, you get to a point where you want to talk yourself out of everything, and the evidence just smacks you in the face over and over again, so you're like, well, if I doubt this, I'm being really self-destructive, and I'm not really serving anybody, and it's worth sounding crazy and being doubted at this point, because, I mean, it would take days and days and days to really map it all out, but at this point, I don't think it'd be a service to myself or anybody if I, like, just denied it all and said it was all BS. And so I just realized, you know, there was Anunnaki takeover somewhat on Mars, but there's a lot of things going on Mars. And that it was another, what seemed to me to be kind of an abduction thing, like a Hades thing, of just yanking me out of my path and my mission and my purpose in order for them to stay in that demiurge type thing. Well, the Christ energy, when Jesus came, and that bond and that love, you know, I was born so connected to that like, I didn't even need to understand anything else. All I knew was I have a mission on Earth, and nobody can shake it. There's no way that anybody can do anything about it. And that's why they weren't able to infect my mind, but they did admit that they could infect my heart by setting me up with somebody. And they used looking glass technologies to target somebody that I had a karmic connection with. He was, they said it connected to a Grail King in Avalon type thing, and that there were certain men and Shepherd Kings, like Damazi and Inanna, that were able to create sacred union without the Christ energy needing to come to Earth, because that was really a rescue attempt for all of us, that energy came to Earth. But men who can really embody that higher awareness were able to partner with her as well. Even Mars she had a relationship with, but Mars had sort of ended up being taken over and ended up being, you know, this colony that was functioning off of information that was not connected to Gaia and divine will and the divine plan, as much as it was more the lower G who, you know, wanted to set up something and then have total control over the human race in these other ways. So I was cluing into all this, and of course, you know, I'm just trying to figure it all out, and I'm, you know, taking bits and pieces here and there and trying to put all the pieces together. So anyway, that was right after this Eve interview that I got. Literally, like, maybe after I broke free of him, I'm like, yay, I'm finally free of his controls. I hadn't even begun, it felt like, because then I show up and then there's, you know, a sleeper mind control slave of that agenda, who was somebody that I had a karmic connection to, that was triggered every time my heart was totally open, to the point where I had to go to the hospital a few times because I thought I was having a heart attack, which was really what their plan was, but I'm still here, so that's cool. And, okay, so you know, part of the plan and the agenda, the reptilian agenda, and like Alfred described so well, you know, has to do with HARP and ELF and all these different frequencies, because the frequency of the planetary body is nirvana. The essence of Gaia is nirvana, is like, you know, the kingdom being the physical, connecting all the way up to Ein Sof. That's the blueprint of this planet. That's why we are extensions of the planet, and when we co-create with the planet, we create ascension. So it's natural. I mean, it's effortless for us to be who we are, except for the fact that there's this incredible agenda from more the ego aspect of the universe and the parasitic agents that act like a cancer in order to engulf us so it can take over and destroy, destroy, destroy. I was going to change this, but I couldn't figure it. And then I was just like, end up being in the place of, you know, everything else. And it's like, first of all, the sand, I would never allow my children to even consider sitting on his lap. So, and yet this is the Vatican, this is religion, this is what connects to the Bible and holiness. I mean, no offense, but that just doesn't feel holy. You know, and so, I mean, nobody's scratching their heads on that. Millions of people come and see him when he comes and visits. Millions of people watch the Queen's grandson get married, right? And, you know, we all do our work and we gather numbers, but I mean, think about millions and billions and, you know, a small, nice gathering, which is great. But I mean, I think there's something missing here. So, and the world has become much more of a computer. We're all, you know, like under this incredible influence, right? So we've got him who works within all this stuff. The Vatican, connecting to the government, connecting to the power structures, connecting to the agenda of what the artificial intelligence, the beast computers, and mind-controlled chips, and all these agendas that are so intense that we almost lose perspective of the spiritual, just trying to dig our way out of, you know, all this other madness, just to get our, you know, make sure our minds are clear and make sure that, you know, we can handle, you know, what's coming up as far as, oh, we're going to be surveillanced constantly, we're going to lose all our freedom. Well, that's just not the case, and I can say it 100% certainty, that's pretty bold, to say 100% certainty that we're not going to have that destiny. First of all, because the Creator, you know, whatever you want to call it, birthed, in a sense, maybe by error, maybe just because it leaked, who knows, you know, the real deal, you know, it certainly was not intentional whatsoever, and that's why there is a divine plan to turn all this around. This is why this particular universe is about restoration. This particular universe could be abandoned because there are many higher worlds that have been emanated from the galactic core. This one just fell kind of to the wayside, just kind of like a broken thing, and it's absolutely and utterly like a priority of the Supreme Being to never abandon and ever let us get in that trap, and that's a certainty. And I think that's why most of us are here, because we're connected to the real deal, and we know that we're heading for something wonderful. Intuitively, we just know it. So, you know, the mind control. Now we get into the fun stuff, and just, you know, the fact that the planet does feel like, you know, it is a program. I remember just being young and feeling like, you know, a CD player had been put in, everybody's running on a program, and nothing seems real, and just the haunting feeling of it all, and then really waking up to my mission and being like, wow, you know? And then, of course, you know, this is connected to, you know, the dollar bill, and what their plan is to finally drop the I so that there is no light and that we're completely imprisoned. And the numerology and such, places like the Church of Satan, that is, you know, the Illuminati religion that connects to the reptilian, everything, all of it has this particular agenda. And one of the defectors and whistleblowers of the Church of Satan said that their #1 target is the divine feminine, and that the police force and everything has stars and symbols where they'll put her face in it, and they'll do, you know, whatever symbolically, so that even visually we're seeing the complete and total insult and the negation of her, which happened so long ago, and, you know, it has been their main target. And to hear somebody that has been in the church, that showed proof that he was in the church, showing things like Jacob's ladder, you know, the stairway to heaven, and their plan to even cut that off, which is the natural stargate, and what the Venus transits are helping to open up. And part of, you know, these inorganic entities that were in the wormholes that I was trying to clear as a kid, this is what they've been trying to shut down. Same with different things in the government. Even Dan Burrish said that, because he understood the Stargate thing, he understood the looking glass technologies and their ability to, you know, look in the past and into the future, that they had a plan to shut down the natural Stargate, and that the artificial ones were a part, you know, we're going to basically take over. And so there's been sort of this battle between, you know, keeping that open while they're trying to shut it down. So it's, you know, this kind of, you know, war going. And this is why Andy Basiago is so profound, because he's probably the only one, and thank God he did when he did, starting a couple of years ago, starting to reveal all this stuff, because he's bringing these technologies and this information into integrity, into its highest expression. He wants it to become a part of the human race in a way that works for us, that helps regenerate the planet, where they're all using it to serve these agendas. And once that gets liberated, that's such a huge piece of the puzzle. And I mean, Alfred's journalistic work, I mean, you just don't hear this stuff, I mean, put in such a way that, you know, can really just allow people to just, and then the fact that he honors the feminine, even writes about her, is just like a miracle. So I'm just forever grateful for these two. What did I do? So anyway, hold on. Alfred? Okay, right. So, okay, yeah. So this, on a government level, as far as the Illuminati agenda in the government, the fact that the Anunnaki and the not all Anunnaki are bad, of course, we know that. You know, Enki was on Ananna's side and tried to help. Anunnaki is very dualistic, just like ego is. There's a positive and negative aspect of it. And it also, some understand there is a higher world. Nibiru is very artificial. It's just really just, you know, a floating thing that just, you know, is a disconnect that's trying to intervene, doesn't even really, I won't get into it all. I mean, I know I'm here to do that, but you know what I mean. It's an invasion, and it never even needed to be introduced into this particular solar system, but certain races actually put it here for a particular reason because, because it had a connection to Gaia Sophia, which is the planetary body, and was steering it in order to bring about like a major catalyst, you know, for people stepping into a certain amount of power within themselves. I mean, the thing is, the dark forces are here to enslave us until we say, wait a second, that's not what I want. And in that determination to not go down a certain road, one awakens to all that they truly are, and it takes something that severe to sometimes activate everything else that is there, even though it never had to be there. The reason this universe is so dualistic, the reason we come here, is because when we liberate that, we are initiating ourselves and graduating ourselves into the abilities that the primordial parents have, which is different than these other higher systems that were originally emanations of the galactic core. More dreams and more visions, you know, that we can travel to, we've had lifetimes on. But why are we so attached to this one? What are we really trying to do here? Why don't we just go to a higher world rather than come down here? There's something that we're being initiated into which is different and has different laws than these other worlds that are out there in these other dimensions and universes. And that it takes a little while to get into. So do we want... So here's the feminine energy holding the planet, you know, saying, I love you, Gaia, and everything is all about, you know, understanding that the planetary body is completely and totally embraced by the unconditional love of the Creator, and the feminine and the masculine, and this is just, you know, one version, but it's really about union. Gaia is actually a planet of sacred union, of partnership, and that's why, you know, or do we want that? And so it's like when you go here, and then you go here, that's like freaky because that's what we're dealing with. And there is a dual battle right now between the organic path of light and this sort of reptilian agenda, robotic, cyborg world. And this is really what connects to, you know, the Nazi party and the military-industrial complex, the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, and their desire to create a super race, just like Sumeria wanted to, and wanted to wipe out all these other cultures that were very much, you know, in a different type of power. So I'm not going to put this on the screen too long because I don't want anybody to have to stare at that for too long. I mean, or just some unconditional love and forgiveness. But I mean, he was just being used as just a vessel for those forces. And here's, of course, this, which is the inverted pentagram. And so, you know, one would have to listen to Mark Paseo, who defected from that church, to understand how much everything that we see in our world today, everything that's running the world, everything that's attracting the millions and millions that go and participate in these power structures and this mind control that really don't understand and are totally asleep. This is what's happening behind the scene, and this is the force behind it, is the inversion of everything, the inversion of what the feminine represents, of what Gaia represents, of what the Creator represents, and the reason they do these dark rituals is because they have no life force without using us, without taking our energy and our power. And, you know, obviously there's ways to protect ourselves. Some have signed up to have really difficult experiences to rise out of and to teach the rest of us what's going on. But it's all, the greatest target is the feminine energy within all of us. And so here we have Roosevelt, which was, Alfred was talking about as far as being, you know, the first president to sign something that put us in this agreement with the ETs to have abductions and have us be even more susceptible to these agendas. And, you know, I don't think anybody really knows what they're doing, so we can't hold any judgment or blame. you know, everybody plays a particular role, and we are at a cusp and a point where we do have a choice. And this imprisonment within the 7 heavens and 7 hells, and the reincarnation cycle and all of this, the Venus transits are setting us free from, because that natural stargate connects right to the galactic core and right to that Ein Sof energy and the fact that unity consciousness are waves that are coming in, and as we awaken it within ourselves, that energy is coming in. And of course, they're trying to stop it with things like chemtrails. And I did it, what the? Why did I do that again? So here are the archons, and yeah, so, you know, these seem to be more like agents, and we are kind of all discussing, you know, what's the deal with these races? I mean, some seem to be helpful and beneficial that look similar, and some aren't. And I just think there's duality in every single race right now, except for when one gets into these higher realms where unity is where it's at. And so, you know, the archons are a part of the demiurge and the lower energies, 4th dimension and below, really. And they can't really get above that. And there's 13 dimensions, and we're connected, of course, where we're able to, you know, connect to all of that. And Alfred's going to be writing a book. You know, even if the numbers are different, doesn't matter. I just know that he gets it, and it's going to be an incredible read, because we are dealing with the spiritual, the exopolitical, and then the human, and how we interact with all of it depends on our vibratory frequency, what we attract to ourselves, what our agreements are, what we want to do. So in the background of all this, yeah. So in the background, just to introduce the next photo, is an alchemical process going on. And like I said, it's not just going into the 7 hells in order to go past the gatekeepers. There's an alchemical process in order, you know, to get the pentagram upright again. And so the Venus transits, by going underneath and up again and going through this cycle of, you know, being in high consciousness, being in the light, and choosing to go into the dark to reclaim power and all that kind of stuff, is, okay, it's not showing it correctly on there, only on that. The archons, okay, so here's the alchemical, okay, you can't see it close up, the alchemical, maybe it's for me to look closer, but who knows. It says, the heavenly and earthly Eve, mother of all creatures in heaven and earth, the star of the kings from the Orient. Okay, you know, here we go back to Eve, but, you know, they also, it says Virgin Sophia at the top, the sun of justice, and it has this whole alchemical process, and of course, Eve was kind of made in her image, and so Eve, you know, who's immortal, and now we're getting to know what she's up to a little bit, is not really what they're representing in here. It's more the alchemical path of Venus and of the Sophia energy of the divine feminine, which of course she's doing as well, and lots of women are. But the picture says, you know, Virgin Sophia, and the fact that the Venus energy is in this alchemical process, and what's happening is there is something interesting going on, because as this underworld journey and coming up again in all these different life cycles, you know, like in Sumeria and Egypt and all this, because it was always about death and resurrection, restoring Osiris and all this energy of death and Kundalini and this and that. Here we have, you know, this is behind the scenes this whole time, working behind the scenes. And what is actually happening astronomically is that astrologers have been able to see that through these Venus transits, which happen every 284 years, completes a cycle, they're in pairs that are 8 years apart. In those transits, and there's dots that are being put, and they're called synodic cycles. It's when the Earth and Venus have a particular alignment that puts a particular mark. And then there's retrograde, where it'll move into a different place. And they've noticed that through the synodic cycles and the retrogrades, that it actually is drawing a pentagram in the sky. And that, I have a great picture of it, I don't know if it's going to come up, where you can see the actual cycle happening, and it is a pentagram. And it's been happening since the beginning of time through the Venus transits, that pentagram is turning the demonic consciousness of the Illuminati upright again. But it takes a certain amount of cycles, and the wheel of necessity, which is the zodiac that we all carry, to allow that to happen, so that we live out what the tree of knowledge triggered in order to get past that particular veil. And so we're all born with astrological charts. Each and every chart that I interpret shows, to some degree, the liberation. It's encoded in us to walk a particular path in order to break free. And if we had it in this lifetime, we come up with a different print in the next one to get it to the next level. We're all moving at different speeds. So if you think about it, when we do astrology, take like the planet Aries. It rules Mars, you know, and it's connected to war. It's also connected to will and fire and power and energy. And so that can be really utilized very well, but it has a negative aspect as well. Same thing with Venus. It's probably one of the most harmonious of planets, but what's a negatively affected Venus? Falling in love with everybody and getting hurt, or, you know, wanting too much love and joy and not balancing it out enough and getting ungrounded, you know, or Venus and particularly Libras also not only attract friends and partners, they also attract enemies and challenging situations through other people. You know, Leos, they're all about sunshine and creativity, but then they can sometimes be arrogant. So, you know, there's always sort of a dualistic nature when it comes to the stars. And so when we have our particular imprint on the zodiac level, we kind of play around with it until we can find some level of equilibrium in ourselves in connection to the codes that we were born with. On a planetary level, of course, there is a astrological thing unfolding, and that's when we hear about the convergences and concordances and different alignments that happen that the Mayans understood and many, you know, ancient cultures understood. And so the Venus transits the Mayans understood was one of the most important cycles because of what it's able to do, and why 2012 is so significant, because when the Sun, Earth, and Venus line up on 2012, December 21st, that is really, you know, a time of the veils lifting, but it's not all centered on that particular date. The actual Venus transit is June 6th of that year, when the Venus, you know, puts another point on, but for it to fully manifest is pretty much around that target date, which is really the end of the wheel of necessity, which is when the zodiac is not so necessary anymore, or those that are still stuck in that paradigm continue to incarnate, but there is a splitting and there's, you know, a shift that happens where that natural stargate takes us to the next place, and somewhat a new earth, a new grid line. So there's Ike, and you know what's interesting about him and being born into this bloodline. I mean, I've been talking a lot about the esoterical stuff that I don't normally cover. A lot of, I mean, I guess I do, but a lot of you know, the stuff that I've been talking about has to do with Mars. But because we're in a, you know, this type of conference dealing with dolphins, multi-dimensions, and all this type of stuff, you know, I think it's important to include both because him, you know, warning us about the military-industrial complex. I'm sure he wanted to say the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, and just had some sort of inkling. So he had a few encounters with ETs. Well, I also found out that he had an encounter with Valiant Thor and the Venetians. And this happened, you know, during, yeah, that comes next, the Bush thing. Valiant Thor right here, you know, has to do with the fact that in 1962 or something like that, they actually arrived in 1952, but they were there a while, the Venetians. They've been coming and going for quite a while. He met with Venetian race, and I guess it was when, yeah, I think Nixon was with him. And I found this out, you know, through research, and I was just like, okay, well, that makes sense. But, you know, research is research. But later, after the Mars recruitment, after I broke free of it, I got an email from somebody that said that there were 3 magi that were connected to Venus, and there's 3 folks here, and that they told Ike about a descendant that would be born to him that would help like complete his legacy as far as the goals he had about the warning of the military-industrial complex and the whole collapsing of this type of stuff, and that, you know, the goals of peace, freedom, and liberation would be fulfilled through a descendant of his, and something to that notion. So here's another weird example of where, you know, something that feels like it might connect to my path show up again. You know, with Andy, it was in 1972 before I was born. With the Mars recruiters, it was through their looking glass technology and then being able to figure out what I was all about and what my path was all about. And then here's the Venetian race that, you know, had an understanding of something that might have been communicated to him. I still don't know for sure. You know, these folks, I figure, could mess with me all the time, and they're not the ones I really come to for information. Well, here's, you know, of course, one of the greatest, biggest ringleaders of New World Order, and who's absolutely the opposite of all that. And so we don't need to, we know what they're all about. It's, you know, it's like her crown could pay my rent for, you know, the next 10 years. And it's just ridiculous, you know. And okay, so 9/11, it's actually, Margaret Starberg said that this situation and this experience somehow connected to the Magdalene energies. I don't know if anybody in the audience knows more about that. I don't have all the information, but it had something to do with, you know, the major attempts to put us in another cycle of fear and another false flag to just get in the way of the divine feminine energies, and that the 2 towers were significant. And there's some sort of, you know, symbolic significance. I don't have all that information. But the point is, these type of things, the whole of the government and everything that we're seeing obviously is all theater, and we know this. And even this, I mean, I'm not buying the Osama bin Laden thing, and that the whole thing, TSAs, the scanners, everything, all of it, and the underwear bomber, you know he was in the closet getting dressed for that one, and they just, you know, CIA, like, agent, whatever, just, you be the underwear bomber, so we have to put TSA scanners, and it's all BS. I mean, there's no real terrorists, except for the ones that are running the world that keep this stuff alive and going. And they have agreements with what we think are so-called terrorists, and they work with them to some level, and it's a major global conspiracy. you know, that's, you know, also connected to chemtrails and to HARP and to create this imprisonment with the grid system to stop the natural stargate and the Venus transits from having success. So that's heavy duty, but, you know, I felt that energy when I was a kid as far as, you know, the heaviness of all that and feeling, okay, this energy's been buried alive, it has to be unearthed, and feeling the pressure and the fear kind of associated with that, and then getting into no fear and like, you know, everything's going to be okay, and I just know it. And I don't even think there actually was any real fear except for, you know, how to function in a human world with this kind of mission, this kind of path, because you just can't, it consumes you 24/7, and it's all you can really do, because there's just a direct correlation with every cell of your body, your nervous system, and everything, because it's so personal to all of us, you know, deep down. So, you know, those are just two other characters during that time. And here's a picture of Looking Glass Technologies, supposedly, and how you know, they're able to see into the past and into the future. And they have other ability. I mean, there's more than one type of Looking Glass technology, but you know, this connects to the beast computers. They're basically able to say a name of anybody that they want, and once they call your information up, then they can start to use behavior, you know, just, they can influence the way you behave. You know, there's attacks on our moods, there's attack on just the way we think. And it's not just mind control. I mean, we're dealing with the technological mind control, then we're dealing with the entities that choose to abduct or choose to, you know, mess with people's minds. And so, you know, obviously it's the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, because this is basically an agenda of an ET race that is using humans as hosts to work through. And it's not really the choice of these humans, except for the ones that are susceptible are the ones that are more service to self-orientated, which the law of one recognizes as not having the ability to really ascend. Service to self-orientated is connected to really, you know, the Anunnaki and that whole, you know, where can I benefit? I want control, and that predisposes them. And some will call it a bloodline. Sure, you know, maybe it has something to do with bloodline, but, you know, there's a lot to be said for things like Rh negative and Rh positive, and how that connects to Anunnaki blood and this and that. We're not ruled by the genetics, so it doesn't even matter, like, where we all have to compare, well, what's your bloodline, and, like, what does this mean? And, you know, that's just one layer of it, similar to just all these other dimensions. That's one layer of it, and anything can be broken through, because none of it has, you know, as much significance as consciousness and as the willingness to be a being that's doing the soul work to restore a sacred union and to get out of the paradigm of the Adam and Eve and restore it to Eve, Christ, Sophia, Christ, and the feminine with the Christ energy, with the creator energy. It doesn't even need names. You know, sometimes we get lost in the names and we get lost in what might seem like an identity, but it's an essence, it's an energy, and it's just above the veils, and the veils are thinning. So, like I said, the Osiris and Isis energy was what they said was the reason that it had to do with why I was recruited, and they mentioned Sirius and the dog star, and he was connected with Orion, so here they are next to each other, not quite sure, you know, what they meant by that or what that fully means. I know it's connected with Isis, you know, and Joan can speak a lot about how it connects to the dolphins, and I mean, there's just, you know, a lot one can go into, but they had mind controlled him and used him and then put him on me to, you know, have that code. You know, I think, obviously we all carry the code, and I think what made me stand out is the bloodline, the Eisenhower thing, where they might have thought, well, this particular code seems to have relevance because she's associated with somebody that's trying, you know, was opposed to this agenda, and that might have made me stand out as, you know, carrying it in a way that they put those two pieces together and thought, like, well, let's take her to Mars. But, you know, it exists within everybody. I'm not, you know, this is not anything more than just them kind of picking and choosing, like, okay, well, because of this, because of that. And, you know, I do have a soul affinity as well. So, you know, here's just some, you know, the Star of David. And, you know, that's been misused as well. Of course, all symbols have. And they've taken it on a negative connotation, and the restoration of it is to understand what the true meaning of the symbolism is, and to work it into our lives. The sacred union is connected to the Star of David, and actually I had a past life regression where that was shown to me. This is you know, this is a particular symbol to actually focus on, and this is part of not just the pentagram being drawn, but that's also being drawn. So this was supposed to show the Venus transits and how they draw a pentagram, but it's in animation, where it would show that it's drawing, you know, that in the sky, but it's not coming up on the screen. And this is the planetary harmonic spectrum in connection to Venus, where the music of the spheres and being able to be a sound healer, you know, one can make the frequency through music and through sound that can help deactivate the mind control and the different controls that are out there. because that frequency, is so high that, it's a higher dimension. It creates peace and well-being, and if that kind of music could be played, in the PowerPoints and on the grid lines where they've been most affected through the dark rituals and the abuses that they do there, it could, help eradicate those frequencies. So my plan is to do sacred site tours and work the planetary harmonic spectrum through music, because each of those is a note, like on a piano, and you can turn that whole spectrum into music, and then go to those sacred sites that have underground bases and things going on underneath them to affect them from generating positive, good energy. And then, put music there to create sound healing, to deactivate. So that's, one possibility on top of, this natural stargate and the natural inevitability of what we're all dealing with on a personal level as we go through our zodiac and our own personal codes. And, this is the upright star. And this is, connected to, just, all the different elements of what it means to really take everything on. I mean, it's about justice, it's about peace, it's about being a warrior. It's like the feminine energy has not had a normal time at all. It's just been very much about being a warrior and having to be in dual battle with a very, 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 very powerful agenda. And I just remember one horoscope that said, your labor of love and your mission, you can do the impossible. And we are doing the impossible. So I just had to get a picture of my friends there. And just because with that, if I hadn't hooked up with them when I did, after coming out of the Mars recruitment, I mean, we all come into our lives for a reason, and there's no like, well, if I hadn't, I mean, why even go there? The point is we have, and bring different, parts of the puzzle together in a very interesting way that connects the dots. That we, it's like even if I was standing outside of it all, it's like we can find that within us. It's just all these different elements of what this represents. I mean, this is where the unification happens, is, the fact that we want to do everything that we can to set the human race free. And as we do that work, and everybody does that work in their own ways, doing extraordinary things that, I don't, that I'm not doing, it's like a huge relief, especially at a gathering like this, because if it wasn't for the amount of people that are on such a path, then the powers that be and that won't be would engulf us just like a cancer. And so every single person counts, and bringing expression to it just illuminates and validates the fact that we're all on the right track, and that we give it a voice, and that we can later on feel like, okay, we can connect to that. And so the phoenix is rising, of course, out of the fire, and no matter what kind of cataclysm happens, it doesn't matter. We can't be attached to the physical world. We can't be attached to the small details, because the point is, no matter what cycle that we're in, we eventually are rising out of this, and they cannot defeat a spiritual path. They can only win if we give them our power and we choose to stay in control. And that's why these underworld journeys and igniting passion, igniting our fire, igniting everything without needing to look at a dogma, religion, or what the world leaders are saying for any permission to be fully and totally in our power. And this is similar to a vision I had as a kid. I had a reoccurring dream that a light would come out of the sky and everybody would think it was an atomic bomb, and they would all run, for cover. And it was just this reoccurring dream that something out of the sky would flood in and shift everything. And it was just this light from the sky. It's not exactly like this, is the closest I could get. And the whole point is, through these different cycles, through choosing to not go to Mars and not thinking, oh, maybe I'm privileged, maybe they're protecting me. They didn't seem to want to hurt me. Sure, they manipulated me to get there, but the whole thing was certain parts of the government agreed to this mind control stuff because they were afraid that humans wouldn't buy into their agenda and they would lose all control. And some of it, a lot of people that are good in the government are doing it because they think it's the right thing to do, because they're trying to protect the human genome. But there's layers that are deeper than that aren't coming from sources that are really saying, yeah, but what is divine will? What is the spiritual aspects? What are the spiritual dimensions saying? We tend to think it's fluffy or new agey, or we tend to put a judgment on it. And people are either religious or atheists if they're not spiritual. And they just forget the whole spiritual realms. So the point is, there might have been a person that would have thought, wow, there's HAARP, there's all these catastrophes, and there's things that are happening, and yes, we're all doomed. I better go to Mars. That sounds like a great idea. And my whole idea is, I don't even care if I get wiped away. I don't care if I die. I'm not here for that purpose as much as I'm here to serve my mission, life or death. And I'm not trying to sound like, one of those, I'll die for my cause, but the point is I died in my last life. So I know I've died before, so what's the big deal? I could die tomorrow, so why would I want to be controlled? Why would I want to sabotage my path that I was born with and go to Mars, to protect, this particular incarnation at the expense of saying, yeah, all those childhood visions and all those weird interviews that I got, from Eve and, this quantum access, all that, even though that validates everything, I'm still not going to do it. I'm going to go to Mars because I'm in love with Agent X who came along and, it's just like, no. A part of me was like, okay, if you're going to recruit me, it's because I want to meet all the people that you're dealing with and then raise some serious hell, because I did afterwards, and I told them, and I'm not trying to sound redundant, but I said, because I'm blowing the whistle, I know that I'm probably creating some disturbances. I knew that in my heart. And they just were saying, we did not expect you to turn around and bite us in the ass, they said. And then someone said, well, you better beware, because the people, okay, just to explain my recruiters, they are part of a group called, should I say the name? Does it really matter? All right. Well, it's connected to the aviary. They're connected to bird names. So if you Google it, John Alexander in the aviary, you'll get a really nice picture of this very, very dark-looking character who looks just like really dark. And anyway, so they're all bird names, right? You got penguin, you got falcon, you got the owl, and all this stuff. Well, the owl is funny because it's connected to the goddess energy, and they use that totem at Bohemian Grove. Basically, they're worshiping something that they're stealing the energy of. They're using the free energy of the universe, the creative energy of the universe, and using these dark rituals to harvest energy for their own evil purposes. And so it seems that they're worshiping something, actually they're insulting it and insulting it and insulting it. So the owl is a major totem for the goddess, and the main handler of Agent X, his bird name is the owl. But anyway, so we have falcon, we have penguin, and I'm thinking, I'm in a Batman episode here, because, it's just like the penguin, and okay, where's the Joker, where's the Riddler? And anyway, so I'm looking at their website, because, okay, basically in this recruitment process, the invitation to Mars, kept coming up and this and that, and then it got heavier and heavier when I just kept refusing, and I had that prophetic dream about being taken up into a ship and having a choice. You can either go with them, it was a voice from the sky, I was taken up by chains into this ship, and it was a ship filled with people that, were dressed in black and had their little spy gear on. Same, thing that he was wearing when he jumped out of the window, climbed out of the window and disappeared for 3 days on some kind of mission. And basically, this is early in our relationship, and I was taken up in the ship, and they said, you have a choice. You can either go with these guys, or you can stay on Earth and do your mission. I said, well, of course I'm going to stay on Earth and do my mission. So I fell out of the ship, and I landed in the water, and I realized that, he was still in there, so I wanted to fly up and grab him, and lightning and thunder, was in the sky, and I couldn't find the ship. I just wanted to grab him. And then I landed back into the water, and I was all by myself, and this organic light, similar to just kind of like that reoccurring dream I had that looked like that, but was flooding everything, and there was a planetary alignment, so it seemed like, okay, well, I made the right choice, but this is way before I knew the characters I was dealing with, and I told him that dream, and that's when a part of him started to realize he needed to leak information to me. And he basically said that they had a list of men, and that they were all, for whatever reason, I don't know how he broke free of his program to even admit that they had that were particularly sent to manipulate me. And it's like, how can you say that to me when you're like one of them? And I tried to tell him, you're turning into a robot. I ordered rare earth magnets in Oregon, and I was, trying to place it on him while he was sleeping. What is this? I'm like, you don't realize you're turning into a robot. And his friend tried to tell him too. So anyway, and when I realized, there's something increasing. Every time we had sort of an issue or we had a sort of argument about me not going to Mars, he would disappear and go and talk to something in the sky. I didn't think it was a real ET race because the energies coming off of his body when he came back made me physically sick. My dog got sick, my kids would get sick, we would just be like, bleh. And I was like, I don't know, it just didn't feel natural to me, this whole, the point is, it was connected to my labs. The aviary is connected to military abductions, artificial telepathy, and kidnapping, stalking, and harassing. Some aren't as bad as others. So I can't verify all that because it is a website, but from a personal experience, what are you going to do, kill me? Because I'm going to reincarnate more pissed off, and it's just not going to work. And I said, and I can, if I'm a ghost, I'm going to haunt the crap out of you all. So, what are you going to gain? And so, I'm mocking it, because they were talking about the assassination of Kennedy in one of the things, and that the science advisor to the CIA, Ron Pandolfi, who was kind of the handler, the person that was giving me information, was somehow connected to that. My ex's handler, they're all very involved with remote viewing, which can be used for positive reasons, but he is a physicist, and these people all have cover jobs. You would think that they were normal, but they do something, very underground that is connected to this. But, alternative 1, 2, and 3, alternative 3 connects to, the establishment of off-planet colonies, and which is what the technologies being used with Andy were all about, was, basically in preparation for there being a serious colony there for the human genome to survive in the event of catastrophe, which we determined, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We're not in disagreement to that, but it's the amount of secrecy and deception and manipulation that takes place, and the fact that the human race is not privy to this type of information is where we saw something wrong. So, in retrospect, it's not a terrible agenda, it's not a terrible idea, but when one really thinks about it and looks at the root of this, and some of the ET races that were communicating the necessity for this during the Eisenhower administration, it was very much based on a more archonic demiurge type agenda. But I think most of the people that were working in those agendas, like his father and others, had really good intentions and were looking out for the human race. We find that there are so many good people in religion and government that actually care about us, that have no idea of something much darker going underneath the surface. And so the point is, in all forgiveness and unconditional love, once these things become not secret anymore, the hope is that they'll just kind of, maybe regret, not telling us the truth. A lot of it is to protect us, because the reptilian agenda is a very scary thing to confront. I'm sure they have a hard time trying to figure out what to do about it, but the point is they keep us from the positive races. They keep us from understanding our true spiritual origins, our connection to the cosmic mother, our connection to the Pleiades, the Sirians, the Andromeda, all of that are trying to assist us. There is major secrecy on all levels, so it doesn't matter which part they choose. The point is everything needs to be out on the table. We all deserve that, and that's what our mission is about, is to reveal all of that, and then whatever the players decide to do with themselves after that is another thing. But it's all, unconditional love, because they have their role, and, the villain has a role for purposes of snapping us out of duality and waking us up to what we're really all about. And this is a blip in the creative story. This is just one universe that's all about reconstruction in order to just return. And so this is kind of, the end result. When one looks at the planetary body, surrounded by the lotus petals, that's really connected to, just transformation and just emerging out of, just something of darkness and just transformation with the butterflies flying out of it. And that's, really just what I see. And then the restoration of the tree of life. We saw the tree of good and evil, and just where the divine plan, gave us a little bit of assistance by allowing us to obtain knowledge, which is what we're doing every day, all the time, when we do our research, when we connect, when we realize that, there is no separation. The Jesus Magdalene and the Christ Sophia thing is not separate from us. It's not about worship. It's not about looking to that. It's understanding that we're made of that. That's who we really are, and that is just an outward example, so we can be reminded of what we're truly made of. And then when the wheel of necessity, the zodiac, is not necessary anymore, and we go through all the different rounds in order to understand how to get the archonic forces off of the planetary bodies that create a sort of negative spin on things, we get to the center point, right in the middle. We're not the pieces on the pie so much where we're going from one thing to another in this aspect and that aspect. We're co-creating with Source rather than the stars and the planetary bodies that we're creating with right now. And when we co-create with Source and we defy sort of all these other influences that we feel ruled by. I check my horoscope all the time. I do my tarot cards all the time. I'm compulsive doing my tarot cards because it's the only language I really know. It's like, where am I amongst, the cyborg arms, the robotic arms holding the planet? So I shuffle at least 20 times a day to keep track of it, and I have been for 22 years, maybe more, 25 years. I've gone through about 40 decks because they wear out so you can't see the art anymore, and I have a deck cemetery. And so, okay, because I can't read the cards anymore because the forces of negativity and control are so powerful that the only way I can have sanity is to see how the archetypes in me are responding and to see, just to keep tabs. And maybe it's just fun. Maybe it's my Tetris or video. I don't know. It's just, but anyway. And so, of course, the light coming in and just transformation. And this is really where we're headed. And I had these visions as a child. I had dreams like this. And somebody on the kind of path like me who, almost ended up on the red planet with my boys, not knowing what the hell we're going to do, And I just keep joking. It's like, how many times can you visit the face on Mars? It's like, what are we doing, Mom? We're going to go see the face on Mars again and that ruin over there. And then we're going to go back into that underground. And I'm going to have to tell them what Andy's been telling us. No. You can be seen and not eaten, children. And that is not, the destiny I wanted. And any time that we, envision our future and think doom, realize that that's not the future that you want and that's not the future you have to have. And even though I had you know, the technological disadvantage on me and the mind control slaves on me, more than one, and all these different forces on me, you know, I was able to break through it, and that's why I really have faith in the human race, not just because of me, because of Andy, because of others, from all the stories that I hear. Every time I connect with one person in this room, I'm totally blown away, and I just realize, you know, we all have these incredible stories of survival, of, you know, just really just being in the heart, and just, you know, there's so much love here, and I knew that this was coming at a necessary time, because the I can't take it anymore and I'm done, we're getting louder and louder and louder before this trip. It's not like things are getting easier for me. It's really difficult every day, and you know, those forces will, you know, just do about anything, and so this has been, you know, a big breath of fresh air, and everything's in divine timing, because, you know, the fact that an event like this has happened, you know, really fills us and lets us leave with that frequency coming off of us, that, you know, we have that hope. And even though I have a tough time and I say I'm done, it's not that I am or that I feel defeated. It's just, it just helps me, you know, just cope. For some reason, not coping helps me cope. I don't understand why, but I guess the point is, you know, no matter what, we are getting, you know, out of this, and it was never really an issue. And so I want to read one thing that really confirms this, that I found by an anonymous person, that it just kind of ended up in my hands, like strange things do at times. And it really confirms things about, now this computer's kind of frozen, but not for long. It confirms things about this asteroid, or this comet thing that's coming in. Okay, first of all, the Anunnaki remnants are now among us. Of course, they're connecting to the ones that want to control them, that are on Nibiru. You know, Nibiru actually was in a catastrophe, and it's half of what it used to be. It's very weak. These things are a lot weaker than we think. The only reason that they end up getting, you know, amplified is because of information disinformation, and just, you know, they're kind of like the cat's out of the bag, so now let's really spook you. It's even, you know, things about this comet coming, and we hear a lot of negative information about it. And I'm not trying to like shed positive information and then be wrong and find that, yeah, it is the Draco reptilians and they're coming in full force. But I know I just don't feel it. So, and I did feel all of that when I was a kid. That's why I was so stressed, and that's why they prepared me. They said, you're gonna die. And, you know, and I did. And so when I died and I left my body for 20 years, I went through what a dead person would go through, but I didn't lose the physical. What I did, I kept my kundalini going, and I kept just enough of myself in the physical so that my physical body wouldn't fall, even though it wanted to so many times. I kept myself here, but I went through the whole cycle, because the Venus energy has to go through the 7 heavens and 7 hells. And to go through that cycle in a physical body helped me break through the chains of this particular demiurge, false god sort of bubble. And it just sort of was something, you know, I had to do. And it's kind of like the dark night of Gaia. You know, there's the dark night of the soul, and then there's the dark night of Gaia. And I just remember as a kid too, I said, you know, you can use my physical vessel to do whatever you need to do to, you know, solve this. And okay, and obviously it's, you know, this isn't a me thing, this isn't all of us thing, this is a unified field, this is all of us when we choose to awaken, this is the dots connect, and people have to understand the planetary body is an organism. It's, it has the same laws and principles, so when one considers, you know, the light of our consciousness and our unity all connecting, it boosts the planetary body's immune system and allows these forces to be ejected, and that's what's happening right now, and I got confirmation. And I knew just intuitively as a kid, because it's an organism and because it has the same laws as the human body, if we could all just awaken, you know, then that's the antidote. And it's not just about, well, what is awakening? Understanding sacred union, understanding the true partnership, understanding balance, equilibrium, equality, justice, you know, all the important things. And all this hierarchy, all this global elite crap, all this, you know, we benefit and you don't, you know, is a lie. And so anybody that feeds into it or lives in ego and thinks they're better, or, you know, that's a part of that programming. And that's just not the case. We all have to love each other and see ourselves as equals, and obviously totally forgive. So here's this. At present, the cloning of humans, animals, and plants are common activities with these aliens in our midst. The diabolical scheme is not known to the general public, and it will be vehemently denied by the world leaders and their minions. Thus, for a long, long time, the Earth has been a planet run by slavers. The Anunnaki on Earth are awaiting reinforcements from their masters, the Anunnaki elite, who escaped temporarily to other solar systems when the Attis were after them. This is the war between light and dark that's been the Galactic Federation of Light against the reptilian agenda that we embody on Earth when we, you know, are fighting. We're obviously fighting the same battle. As above, so below. The Anunnaki on Earth we are waiting reinforcements from their masters, like I said, the Anunnaki elite who escaped temporarily. However, the reinforcements will not be coming to Earth this time, because the Attis have restricted their reinforcements, so the existing Anunnaki on Earth are stuck. The sun cruisers that have been detected recently, this is recent, this is about a week old. The sun cruisers that have been detected recently are part of the rescue team from the light. They are not of Eridanian origin, has been speculated by some. The sun cruisers are on standby because the light anticipates that the Anunnaki elite will attempt to return to the Earth to cause all manner of catastrophes and to resupply the Anunnaki remnants. However, should any Anunnaki elite attempt to come to Earth, they will encounter invisible forces from the light. The Anunnaki remnants are confused by the clearing of the planet by such means as global warming, volcanoes, fires, and wars. This is those in power. Those are it's about the puppet master thing. It's about using humans as using humans to implement their agenda. The Anunnaki elite are using the Anunnaki, on Earth, the reptilian type agenda, not the other Anunnakis, which aren't bad. There's a positive and negative to pretty much every race, so I'm not trying to demonize any race. These are the terminologies they use. And anyway, so, we're dealing with HARP, right? We have catastrophes like that. There are other catastrophes that are going to happen that they might assume are from them triggering something. And so what they're trying to say here is when more catastrophes happen, they're going to assume that it's a part of the agenda to depopulate. And they're just going to figure that. But really what the Earth is doing, it's in a detox mode. Once this agenda starts to die down, then the Earth is kind of like, through, healing on all these different levels, whether it's sound frequencies, whether it's embodying sacred union and really creating really good partnerships and understanding. I'm not trying to be like a dogmatic person when it comes to union, like you must stay committed and married, But I mean, you got to find the person that you really want to do that with, and the magic that can come out of that is immense, because when you really choose to commit to that person, you work all the archetypal dramas, and you can just commit to saying, let's just rid ourselves of the programming. If people could just commit to that and get over all the humps and all the different things, if they could at least say, let's just heal this, it's amazing what can happen and what the energy that gets released. And if that person can't do it with you, then yeah, find somebody else, but So anyway, they thought that these would be signs of the return of the Anunnaki elite to Earth. When these other catastrophes happen, when the volcano blows in Mexico, when all this other stuff happens, they're thinking, oh, depopulation. They don't realize that the guy is actually detoxing, and it's them that are being wiped. It is them that are losing the game, and they're going to freak out. However, they are now beginning to suspect that their masters cannot get through the light security, and so the Anunnaki remnants are becoming terrified to the point that the world leaders are now irrational. And so this is really where we are right now. And I mean, of course, we have threats of green technology, the nanoparticles that come out of chemtrails and such. They get into our skin and this and that, so we can be surveillance. And like, so what? It's like, I mean, I just make fun of them. I mean, it's like, what a stupid hobby, first off. I mean, these meetings that they have, they're thinking about the next thing to plot against us, and that is what they do for a living. So it's just like, it becomes, seriously, it has to become comical for our own sanity to realize this and that. When we start to see catastrophes, a lot of times we're like, well, was it HARP or wasn't it? All right, first of all, the radiation thing was huge. But, this is why I'm so bent on explaining the alchemy, because alchemy turns lead into gold. That's a serious heavy metal right there. And when one can transmute these kind of poisons within ourselves, and when we understand that the planetary body is capable of regeneration, these ancient civilizations in Lemuria, and they had all the healing technologies. Everything under the sun can be cured. These all are mimicking technologies to our latent powers that we have. The reason it's important to disclose these technologies is because, like Andy said, we are not going to just be avatars overnight and just like this. We need this supplementary assistance to get the ball rolling like training wheels to reignite, our healing capabilities, where we can just put our hands on something and turn it into something else. And I did that before. I was at a party. This is when I was a lot more activated, not so much drowning in my humanness. It was one of those good weeks. And I was at a party, and I was holding a beer. And I was just thinking, I mean, 'cause I tend to have a few sometimes. I was just kind of making a joke like, I really should be drinking water. And I just said it, right? And I hadn't cracked it open yet, because I just, had a few. And I was at the Clairvoyant Institute at the time, so I was surrounded by a bunch of psychics. And so anyway, and I'm holding the beer, and I crack it open, I take a sip, and it was water. I was like, this is really weird. And then somebody's like, did you realize you just changed beer into water? And I said, no. I said, the beer company must have bottled water by accident, and I just happened to pick up that beer. And it's just a coincidence, because I'm sure there's, and they're like, well, pour it into a cup. And I poured it into a cup, and sure enough, it was water, and people tested it. And because I had a few beers after that, and I didn't really remember, well, I mean, it's not like I blacked out, but the next day I went to the Institute, they said, Laura, do you remember changing beer into water last night? I was like, it really did happen. And, and so this is the thing. And, I mean, obviously, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I can't do it right now. I'm not going to do anything special, but the point is, that is available. When we're really in our center, when we're out of the lower chakra turmoil of what our world is going to be or what our personal lives are showing us, we can just choose to stay in our center and not get so immersed in the externals. We have these amazing abilities. We can turn things into something else. You know, and just one other quick example, I had to catch a plane. The ticket was wrong. I was getting dropped off. I had no ride. But before I got on the plane, my mom was driving me, and we got to a stop sign. I said, just stop. She goes, why? I said, just stop. I walked out into the grass, and I pulled out $50. She goes, whoa, that was really weird. So I put the $50, and I didn't know what to say. I'm like, yeah, that is weird, Mom. And it was weird. And of course, she's just like, well, you know, can you stop asking me for money then, now that I see, like... And she's just thinking, this is so weird. You know, maybe Laura just put it in the grass just so that, you know, she'll finally convince me that, you know, she's a part of this other path and this and that. I mean, God knows how she processed it. But she drops me off at the airport, and she leaves the tickets for the next day. And the guy behind the counter says, well, the only way you can change this ticket is by giving me $50. It's going to cost you $50 to change the ticket. So I was like, whoa. And, you know, weird things like that happen. I've heard so many stories amongst people where miracles happen, strange things happen. We all have a story in our life that is something miraculous. What were we thinking and doing at that time, we wonder, you know? Where can I get that back? And the point is, you know, I think it's when we're really centered and we're just in this space of, you know, divine innocence. It's really about returning to divine innocence. And we just feel free and unaffected. We really are capable of manifesting amazing things. And so if we all did that, and just anything that's in our path, anything that's going on the planet, you know, can do a lot. So we don't want to hold out for those miracles necessarily. It's important that everything is disclosed, that we have the technologies that we need to reverse a lot of, you know, the illnesses and things that are going on, a lot of destruction to the planetary body. And then, you know, in the meantime, you know, really exercise our spiritual gifts and our talents and our abilities that the demiurge energy in the lower G has been mimicking and using as a means for power, as a means to be the God, as a means to be the one that claims, I'm the one who created all of you, which is not true. So I'm going to close here in a second, and I just know that what we're heading for is inevitable, and that they've only delayed the inevitable, and that's all they can possibly do. And the Supreme Being's agenda is the ultimate agenda, and nothing comes close. That agenda pales in comparison to what we're capable of and what we're going to do, and it doesn't even matter. Anybody who says a scenario, even the Church of Satan, who says that their numerology is such that we're going to be stuck in hell on earth here forever, that's not true, because that's another belief. That's another belief they want us to believe, that they're energizing all the time through frequencies. And, you know, I didn't quite get into the projects and the different things, the MK Ultra stuff, the stuff that he covered that I know a lot about going on in the underground, but I thought that a big dose of this would be important because a lot has already been covered by the two of them of work that I'm familiar with. So just really wanted to keep it sort of in the light of the essence of our capabilities, of what we're made of the fact that the Cosmic Mother is with us, working through a lot of us in order to create this transformation, has never left us, is the true reality. She's holding Gaia, not the mechanical arms. That is there, but it's just an illusion compared to the new Earth grid that our beings are already vibrating at. And that's why we came here, to help others, be set free. It's not so much about us anymore being set free. We know we're free. But we have incredible empathy and compassion, and we want as many to come with us as possible. And they can't shut down the natural stargate. And the reason I know everything is going to be okay is because we are barometers. You know, we can tell intuitively, we can tell in our beings if everything's okay. Our bodies carry the wisdom to give us the information we need to know. And that's what, you know, Alfred was covering, that the survival instinct of the human race is powerful. We get all the alerts we need, we hear it in our dreams, we see it, you know, we just know naturally how to respond unless we have a death wish or we want to be controlled. That's the only way we're going to be. And like I said, death is the last thing we should fear. It's being controlled. And that's really easy to break free of. Turning off the TV, not buying the programmings of the masculine and feminine, how one role should be or one gender should be, and how relationships should look. It's all about love. It doesn't matter what sex you are, whether you're the same sex or not the same sex. The point is, when two people come together, they create that balance, that harmony, and that union, and that takes them right back up to Einstein where it all began. And this world is only a reflection of that third wheel, the demiurge, and that's not what the planetary body's made of, because Sophia morphed into the physical planet. It has only enslaved it by throwing her into exile, imprisoning her in the underworld, and guess what? She's not in prison, and she's free, and she's emanating through every being who just says, okay, I'm not going to repress it, I'm not going to hide it, and it's a choice that we all have, is to just live in that lack of fear, because that, like I said, the programming is that we fear ourselves, we fear our power, and we fear our greatest abilities. And being dumbed down is not a genetic manipulation, it's a belief system manipulation that's affected our genetics. And that's another fear-based disinfo, is that they want us to think that we're all manipulated, and they've done all that in a lab, and sure, they have to a certain degree, but awakening changes whatever manipulation they've done. It naturally enforces the chakra system, which is connected to the tree of life, and which you saw is connected to DNA. And that's connected to the Kundalini, which is connected to the Zodiac, which is connected to the tree of good and evil, and the knowledge of understanding who we really are that's getting us out of this mess. So, any questions? And I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me. So, any questions?
Yes. All right. Here. So, I guess maybe.
In looking at the power of the divine feminine, where can it go when it's at its ultimate release? How far does it create? Is it, between the union of a man and a woman, or two beings on Earth? Does it emanate into universes? Can it emanate back to the Godhead?
Well, I mean, a lot has to do with, partnership, but also we have to realize the partnerships within us. I mean, there were times when I was single for a long time and I kept shuffling the Lover's card in my obsessive-compulsive tarot shuffling, and I realized, and it would change direction, sometimes slightly blocked and sometimes totally open, and there were times when relationships got in the way of union with spirit, and I realized, I'm already in a profound relationship, and I can only really be in a partnership with somebody who gets that and doesn't try and take it down to a lower level, the lower God, demiurge kind of archonic level, as much as I'm willing to do the soul work with the compassion of the archetypal dramas, of course. But, we already are in partnership, and the thing with the divine feminine energy is she's considered the mistress of the elements. If one, reads about, Isis in particular, I mean, they're all basically the same names for the same energy. She's the mistress of the elements, and it's about union with heaven, and the planetary body has the underworld, earth, and the heavens, and this is like our physical body with our creativity, the depths of our soul, our physical body, and our consciousness. And, when you link two people together, okay, I mean, the interview with Eve talks about even not needing a man and getting it on with it creates magical babies, actually. Just any form of being in a high state and having that kind of release creates magical babies, right? So I think we should create armies of them, whether you're with somebody or not. I mean, and this has nothing, I'm not getting into anything about me personally, I'm just saying that's what she said, and I encourage that people understand that the energy is such that, it basically comes out of the top of one's head. Now, it's even better, in some cases, to be celibate and to understand that, the realms in Ein Sof is the before even Kundalini came about. So there's ways to just be in a high state of consciousness without the need for that. And so there's both zones. I think people can get a lot out of not having partnership and being in total union with divine energies, or creating that, or creating partnership. The point is being in integrity and being in a state of bliss, and being willing to direct that energy towards something transformational. It's like intent, thoughts, create reality. So when you honor the sacred in that, and it's not just about getting laid or, hitting on somebody and, kind of putting it down to a lower level, it can do unbelievable things. But the point is, and the problem is, it's not really a sacred thing in our culture. And that's what the reptilians feed on, is the whole industry of sex in our culture is a very low form of it, and it's just about conquest, it's about the physical, it's about, just sex for the sake of sex, and that actually is very detrimental to the planetary body, and is the inversion of Kundalini, and it connects to the reptilians that actually feed on that, and it attracts them. And you can open negative portals if you have sex with somebody that you're not really in love with, actually. So, and even some people will say that if you're not really in love, you're basically raping a person if you are with them. So, not to make anybody feel like they might have been rapists in their past because they were like that. The point is, it's not, it doesn't have benefit, and we learn by falling on our face. So, the power really is, the Kundalini busts all illusion. So, when one's activating that, whether with a partner, whether by themselves, or whether they're doing anything to create that energy, and they're just celibate and they don't do anything, the point is, it's about reaching high, and it's about getting higher than those veils, and that's what connects to the ancient ones, that's what connects to source, that's what connects to the galactic core and unity consciousness, is getting past those veils. And energetically, Kundalini is a creative force, it's a spiritual force, it's a sexual force. And when the three are in trinity together, it's, that's what Tantra is all about. And a lot of New Age, I don't want to label it, but some kind of go a little bit too far with it, and they think, you know, something like the whole polyamory thing. And if anybody's into that, that's great, that's fine. I have no judgment on it. But just from what I understand, spreading oneself out too thin doesn't have the same kind of effect. And sacred union is really, you know, about, you know, connection with the divine, whether it's you personally or with one other. Doesn't matter what sex. But the point is, it's much harder to create that kind of thing if one just chooses to have a lot of partners. And that's part of the deception, a reptilian deception, that polyamory is some higher form of love, and that, you know, oh, you can take care of all your needs. It's like love. You can be polyamorous on a heart level and love a ton of people. But it's better and cleaner and healthier to just stick with one partner. And I'm not a person to tell anybody what to do, but energetically, this I'm pretty sure of, just because of my own journeys of understanding energy and being, you know, in the Clairvoyant Institute for years and reading people's chakras. I do it daily. I give readings, and I can just tell the difference. And so that force, I mean, it's like an artist. An artist can create anything, and new worlds and new universes is like the imagination. When one thinks of something, it's like inventors. When you can step outside of the box to the point where you're bringing in something new that's never been done before, you've created a new universe in a way. You create a new reality, a new portal, and it's endless what it's capable of. Because, like I showed you in the Tree of Life thing, above that is Ein Sof, and that is almost undefinable. That's where they say God is undefinable. And actually, Sophia is the Shakti of that unknown God, and that feminine force stays in the Pleroma, but embodies herself here to be a bridge between that world and the physical world. And so we're all bridges. And yeah, so like I said, there's the magical children, and then there's, you know, the other route, which would be celibacy, which is, you know, really purifying the vessel and just emanating divinity just in life. And it's really about the heart, it's about unity. And sure, Kundalini, you know, is useful, but it can be activated without even having to do anything, you know. But if one wants to, you can make a lot of magical babies. And armies of them, and just tell them, you know, can you know, deactivate HARP and all this stuff, you know, and do stuff. And so, yeah, and that's why sacred union is great, because once you meet that right partner, you know, you can say, let's spend the week in bed because we have to heal the planet. So, yeah, just make it's more important than doing a 9-to-5 job sometimes. So.
Well, I had a question. You had talked about when you were a child that you had a lot of visitations, including your great-grandfather and things like that. Who all did you get visitations from, and can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, basically, well, I had a lot of, you know, I don't know if I was, because the imagination is very potent and powerful. I mean, I don't know how much I was invoking certain things, but, I mean, like I said, I wasn't completely clued into who my great-grandfather was, and I just would see him, and I knew that he was familiar, and he just had just a really kind, loving connection to me. And later on, actually, and I told Alfred this, right before we did a roundtable on the Mars thing, this person I had given a reading to said, Ike just showed up while I was taking a shower and said, please watch out for my little Laura when she exposes all this stuff, because there's a lot of really bad people who are listening. And she just called me, she's like practically in tears, she's like, your great-grandfather, you know, showed up and he was dressed like in a gray suit and said, don't be intimidated because I used to be a president, but you have to just tell her, you know, look out for her. And then when I went to the Clairvoyant Institute, before they even knew me, and I stumbled upon it, I didn't really plan on signing up, my higher self, I guess, did. They said, the minute I walked in the room, they said, Eisenhower's here. And I thought that was weird. I said, you know, maybe I should say something. So at the end of the thing, I said, oh, did you know I was related to him? And they said, no. They said, oh, well, his presence is here. He just is with you. So he was showing up when I was a child, and I wouldn't say that he was downloading all this information about ETs, but there was some sort of ET thing happening slightly with this positive timeline viewfinder thing, this luminous race that didn't reveal who they were. Maybe they did, I just don't remember, that had me look through a viewfinder and just told me that, you know, just to stay, you know, true to what I knew I was here to do, and that, yeah, I would pretty much die. And like, it was like going through a birth canal. It was like, you're going to be born on the other end and be, you know, so beautiful and all this stuff, but there was this level of extreme death, but going through something of some kind of rebirth and some kind of shift, you know, to assist the planetary body. And I got that communication. I was being prepared, and, you know, and I just knew, like in my book, I mean, this, and I wrote it a really long time ago, and I lost a lot of it, but a lot of it is about the beings that were visiting me, more like spirit guides, like, because I basically, like, I just remember there was a period where I was being prepared, and I was doing all sorts of weird things, similar to strange things like the beer turning into water. I was just able to do weird things, and I would just like say, I really feel like doing this, and I would be able to do it. Like, I feel like climbing out of the window and just floating, you know, with the light of the moon. And so there you have it. I would do it. And I shared a room with my sister, so I thought, oh, I was just dreaming it. And then she would tell me, she goes, you know, Laura, you keep going out of the window and like, you know, floating up. And it's funny because she went to college with my sister. I just find it so funny. They were in the same class. So it's like, Caroline. So I shared a room with her, and you know, there were times where the walls would disappear and all this stuff, and I'd be like, Caroline, wake up, are you seeing this? And you know, and I'd be shown all these images and all these different things, and there was so much activity going around me and so much communication. One time my blanket turned into a being, and it had its hand on my leg, and half of its hand was made out of something like it was like Native American moccasin material, or on one hand it was just kind of, I don't know, it was really weird. But anyway, its face kept shape-shifting, and it was just talking to me. And it was telling me all this stuff, and it actually showed me, it flashed a face of this kid that I met in first grade who died of a brain tumor. And it kept flashing his face to me, and then it was talking about Eve, funny enough. And it actually said its name was Eve, but it wasn't masculine or feminine. But it was saying something anyway. It just gave me this flash of this kid. And I saw him, and he was familiar. He became my best friend. And everybody made fun of him because he played with dolls. I thought he was really wonderful, so we had a little family. And we had our baby, and we would go out in recess, and we took care of this baby, this doll. And then I found out that he was, you know, had this brain tumor, and I really, really wanted to heal him and just like help him. And I connected it to that, and I wasn't able to, but you know, we stayed somewhat in communication. So he would, you know, visit with me because I was the only person that was his friend. And anyway, I connected to him on a spirit level. And so my mom was like, you know, really worried that I was going to be devastated and not able to cope, but I know that that little warning about it was just, you know, kind of helping me kind of cope with it, and a few things like that. You know, similar things just with different deaths, you know, that happened in my life. Not to go off on tangents about other things, but there was a lot of kind of activity around me. Not so much extraterrestrial, it seemed more, I mean, the Christ energy particularly. Like, there's years and years where I was inconsolable just because I felt, you know, just carrying that code, or it's a universal energy that obviously is available. You know, it's kind of like what Alfred said, and Andy even mentioned something about this generated universe where we see the stars, but it's coming from something else, like the Matrix. You know, and so I kind of realized, you know, I'm kind of a character, so I could easily let go of my role and realize, you know, I've fallen into this particular energy stream, but I know there's more to it than that. And I just kind of had this understanding of something beyond it, but still being in it, where you're a character, but yet you're free, and so it kind of helped me de-identify. Where was I going? What was the first part of what I was saying again? Oh yeah, so the Christ energy, I mean, to me, maybe it was an act of imagination or just my desire to connect to it, but there were times where it was so vivid, where, you know, he would like literally, you know, take care of me. There was this tower I was in, he would come in as a bird and shapeshift, and then be Jesus, and then he would leave again, always kind of keeping me going on my mission, and then times where, I mean, you could just see in his eyes, and they were just pools of compassion, like just water, and just his aura. And I just remember just kind of laying back and just always being taken care of, but every time that would happen, I'd be inconsolable for a while because I felt just some kind of, just terrible that he had to come and assist the feminine, or I just felt like, I just felt that he had to go through any suffering. I felt like a widow, and I mean, at the age of 6, I was connecting to the Magdalene energy, and I just, at times, I was absolutely inconsolable. My mom didn't know what to do about me, and if I told her, it's just like, I'm just really sad about Jesus, and and just like, I feel terrible about, you know, the crucifixion and everything like that, and all this disinformation, oh, he was never crucified, and this and that. It's just like, what is truth, what is reality? We're in this matrix, you know, everybody wants to rewrite it, there's all this disinfo. And I said, you know, a lot of this might just be my imagination. Maybe I'm being sent energy waves for me to believe this stuff. You know, maybe it's all a big joke. Maybe I'm being punked. I didn't really care, but the point was, okay, I've fallen into this energy stream. I'm wired to connect to it, but I'm also wired to break us free of identity and of the story and of the myths, and to really enter that pool of oneness in that ocean where all our stories and all these myths sort of evaporate, and that was just how we got here. That's how we got home. But those stories don't matter as much. It's, like I said, the reconstruction of the universe tells those stories. Once we come home, those stories don't matter anymore. But this, you know, was just a particular storyline that I deeply connected to. And so I had a lifetime of, you know, I guess you'd call them apparitions of Jesus, and that was about 3 chapters in my book about that, and just how, you know, and of course, that energy, I mean, it's highly emotional. I mean, the emotional energy is off the charts. It's ridiculous, and it just gets really old after a while to be in such an emotional state. So I found more neutrality, more, you know, self-forgiveness about it, even if it is just a hologram, you know, whatever it is. you have to get to a certain point of acceptance, and so I did, and the fact that he continually consoled me and just, you know, didn't make me feel responsible and sort of helped me understand the cosmology of the universe and of creation, made it just seem like a leak and some kind of error. And so, you know, and a lot of people tap into this. A lot of people tap into the Magdalene energy and might find, you know, that they have a similar emotional response or connection to Jesus. There is no chosen one. It's just wisdom and love. And they're just, yeah, there to kind of encourage the process as just being, you know, signed up as characters to just get us, you know, out of this, the demiurge's hold. But ultimately, just to remind us that that's what we're all made of.
Yes, I wrote down, you mentioned Sophia is not necessarily feminine or masculine. And then I wrote down, I wanted to clarify, an 8th dimensional level. Right, okay. So the bar below Sophia is more the cosmic mother. Okay, well, the womb part is feminine, but the infinite light, which can be called Brahma, you know, there's other names for it, source, you know, Ein Sof, Ein is the limitless light. Ein Sof is when the womb is created. Ein Sof Or is when the point of light emerges from it, and that's, you know, kind of the cracking of the cosmic egg, and it's about the double helix and the spiral, but it's a masculine and feminine frequency. The seminal spark of creation and all that, you know, kind of implanted, and then, you know, and it goes on and on, like Ophion, you know, falls into, I mean, I won't get into all that because I'll just confuse myself as well because there's so many different ways to explain it, but there is a point where that energy is androgynous, and it's just the masculine and feminine, and the aeons that birthed out of the pleroma birthed pairs from that. And it, you know, it's called Sophia because of the womb, the cosmic womb that was created. That was just a name given. Names aren't as important. But the lowest aeon in the pleroma was the aeonic pair of Christ Sophia. Actually, somewhere in the middle. But it kept multiplying. See, the thing is, when something comes out of the pleroma, it keeps multiplying and multiplying and multiplying until it gets closer and closer to matter. And so at a certain stage in it, actually, Sophia was the last aeon, even though she was like the first. So the Godhead is basically Christ Sophia. And the divine pair, when the Achamoth part of Sophia that split out and leaked, didn't leak with the Christ energy. And that's why a divine plan had to happen. He had to come and assist the planetary body in bridging itself back into union, because what happened is the demiurge got created in that leak, and that's what is trying to enslave the human race. And that's why he comes in, and the whole drama with the cross, and the whole drama with her going into the underworld over and over again, and the labyrinth, and the Hades, and all that stuff, and is all about the restoration to get back to the conditions of the pleroma and anchor it here, instead of what that leak has done, which is create this inorganic bunch of energies that are agents of the demiurge, which is a result of that leak. Because when that bit leaked, it had consciousness and wanted to return, and that's what creates the inverted pentagram, because the 4 emotions that she felt is what created matter, and the splitting of Tiamat created the heaven and earth. So the reason that the 5th element can turn the pentagram upright again is because spiritual consciousness turns all those lower energies back into earth, fire, air, water, the 4 elements, and then spirit. That's what creates transmutation, so that spirit is the dominant force that moves matter rather than matter kind of controlling us. So when spirit is able to create that transmutation, we'll find that we have more control of our environment. We can make miracles happen, we can shift things, we can do things, we can move things, we can transcend. But right now, because we're dealing with the demonic consciousness of the Illuminati and being manipulated to stay in those 4 lower energies of bewilderment, fear, sorrow, and even ignorance, that is required to have the 5th element of spirit to turn it back upright again, and that's the alchemy. That's why it's an alchemical process. And doing that is basically climbing up the ladder of one's chakra system, getting out of the lower chakras where the reptilians like to feed, and that's where the kundalini is the higher form and the higher octave of any kind of serpentine energy, and that's what Sacred Union is about, that returns us. And so, you know, just that small leak did all this damage. And it wasn't anything intended. It was the pressure of all this stuff when the Creator wanted to know itself, all the different emanations, because it was realizing how vast it was and how much it was all about, that the Godhead that was used to dreaming and emanating worlds created one that was so destructive and filled with murder that I think in an attempt to do something about it, like something got leaked out. And it produced emotions that the primordial sea of chaos created a reality from, which created the world that we're in. But because the Gaia body is divine and Sophia morphed into it, this is a cosmic multidimensional planet, and it has the same almost law of returning and anchoring heaven on earth as we do, and that's what the natural stargate connects to with the Venus transit. Similar to all of us being natural stargates all on our own. We're all natural stargates. We all can transcend this veil. But the mind control is what changes our belief systems and shifts us into another way of thinking. But we've already had victory. I mean, it's just obvious. So, and we'll never have to do this again. And I think, you know, the reason there's been a lot of big bangs, because the creator's getting wiser. So is the feminine. I mean, she knows. She's. There's an awareness that's built in that you know will never be the same again. And we have to understand that the creator. You know, there is divine innocence there, and there's nothing but love, but, you know, things happen. And at the same time, it's given us the gift to be one with that, and to have the same kind of creative abilities, to be capable of dreaming and emanating worlds that are going to be ours to live in, based on our own unique selves. Because unity is not oneness and sameness. As in sameness, it's the diversity of all of us working in harmony, and we're all very different. And so, you know, basically the gift is the reason why this world is so tough, because we're being initiated to be just like that, but without, you know, this is just a test. Can you survive the enslavement? Do you really want to come home? Do you really want to be that power? Because it's made of unconditional love and it's made of wisdom. Can we embody that? Most people don't know how. They cheat people, they lie, they steal. You know, people are really corrupt. Even the best. I mean, I sometimes meet wonderful people, and you get to know them after a while. It's just like, what is wrong with this person? It's just, they don't care. And the reason why this is a test, because we're being asked, can you have full-on integrity? Can you really be, and I tell people, being a good person is our ultimate protection. People take it for granted. They just think that they can just get away with anything, and they will not ascend. And so we're just being tested to be, because when people love God, they know God is full of love. When they think of the biblical, they're like, oh, God, religion, blah, and they just, God's been, you know, people don't like God anymore because of religion. And so that's why I tend to not use that word. And Christ, they did not share the message of Christ at all. Who honored the feminine, was the biggest feminist ever, I mean, on that level. So the point is, we're just being tested. Can we step up to the plate and be the ultimate beings that we can be? But we have to realize, you know, being holy and divine is not being an asshole. And that, yeah, and so, you know, and that's, you know, religion, they do have, you know, the confessionals in this and that, but then it's just like, okay, thanks, now it's your turn. And then you can ask the priest, do you want to confess anything? You know, because I don't want to leave my little boys in the same room with you. So, I mean, that's just... The reason everything's so funny right now is because the structure of government and religion has become such a joke that it's easy at this point to break away. We're giving a free pass to wake up. Because if anybody is still thinking that an institution that has pedophilia is okay when we're putting people in jail all the time, and if these, you know, people running the government, that is okay what they're doing, it's just like, and that's what's scary about millions of people still showing up to these royal weddings and still, you know, going to church. And the things they just want to believe, they don't want to be challenged. They just want to believe everything is good. And so I just have ultimate compassion for them. And maybe the next zodiac that they manifest for themselves will give them the ultimate wake-up call, which is what the planet Uranus does. It'll throw you on the ground, give you an injury or an accident, or a great awakening, a profound experience, you know, to wake one up to the power of consciousness, which is beyond the physical. Anytime somebody loses somebody or gets injured or has a difficulty, they almost become a more spiritual being because they detach. They say, this is not the number one most important thing. Love is. The people in my life are the most important thing. And those accidents don't happen to remind us, but they certainly bring on incredible wisdom if one chooses not to be in victim consciousness. And then the healing follows. And, you know, this is just one vehicle that we're in, so it doesn't even matter. The point is, as long as we cultivate our consciousness, we will continue to manifest stronger and better, and we will get out of here.
I was wondering, like at the point where you decide to say no to going to Mars, what happened then? Did you just tell Agent X no, and that was the end of it? You never saw him again, nobody bothered you again, no coercion or anything? Any advice about how to get out of a situation like that? And you know,
yeah,
you got away from it somehow.
Yeah, it took, I would say, maybe about 6 months to fully get away from it. I mean, the thing is, they had, I mean, it's like having a walkie-talkie on somebody. It's just like, you know how people like to push our button, like, what does this button do? You know, what is this? It's like I felt like he was a living remote control. It's like, what does this button do? Like, you know, obviously she loves him. They have a karmic relationship, so this is perfect. They use these technologies. They locate two people that would have come together naturally. They get to us before we would have, because I know we would have met. And so basically, it's like, right when I was the most vulnerable, they would activate him and completely try and get me to go. And it was all very, you know, fear-based. And he thought he was a hero. He thought he was serving the human race. And this is what happens with a lot of the people. They recruit them from, well, he was involved with like Freemasonry and the Knights Templar, but he was a more positive version of it. I don't even know if that's even the case anymore. But I mean, he was born into it. He was born into a multi-generational family. I think he was definitely dealing with the ritual child abuse because he had multiple personalities, and even he was telling me a little bit more about it. His parents were chipped too, and he just was dealing with all this kind of stuff and trying to work with it, but he refused to acknowledge that the people he was working with were bad, because what the aviary does is they'll create a scenario of abduction and abuse, and they'll act like the ones that are coming to investigate it and actually help. And then they'll put you on a mission to make you think like, oh, they're not only helping you with this, you know, this event that happened, or this abduction, or witnessing cattle mutilation or deer mutilation. They'll recruit you into their program, and then they'll give you a special mission. But they're the ones that are behind it. And this is what I figured out. I'm like, okay, who is this person that you keep talking to on the phone? Okay, got the name, got all the names, and I started research. And it took me about 2 weeks to locate their names with what I thought they were up to. And I wasn't giving up. I was like, I know these people aren't good. I know, I mean, or they're being used to not do good things. And I just kept at it. And I would go to one website, and then I would go to the next website, and I would see some sort of like Paul Benowitz. I remember being a name, and I was following him. And does that sound familiar? Benowitz, the Benowitz case, he kind of went. Anyway, so I just did a lot of research, and I saw that case, and then one of the names of the aviary folks was on that, and I said, okay, I recognize that name. I was like, okay, he's gone and commit suicide, I think it was, so anyway, that was one of the linking websites that I went to, and then boom, I found the name, and then it was like, that name was connected to HARP, ELF, and then obviously all this other stuff. And so I realized, okay, this is really bad. You know, and I tried to tell him, you know, when he was going out and talking to these things, I just said, you know, I just know that you're not, I know that they're not real, or they're connected to the military or the government, or something hidden, and they are trying to turn you into a robot. So basically, they had a list of men. So the other ones tried to kill me. He didn't. I mean, I survived like two strangulations, and I know that sounds horrible, but like I said, it's another day at the office. And I didn't take it that, you know, you just can't take it that serious. It's like, I'm a character in this role, but is it going to actually happen? I don't know. But I just remember the power of love is stronger than death, and, you know, just all this type of stuff, and then I would get away, and then, you know, create, you know, havoc, and like put that person in their place and create justice was the next thing, which I did with the Mars people. So with Agent, I almost said his name, Richard. Sorry. It just got chaotic. Like, he would try and really, you know, put the fear on me, but it wasn't him doing it. It was like, he said, there's a dead body in the trunk at where I work, and you have no idea. He's like, I'm here trying to protect you, and you're like, don't you understand? He's like, you have to go, because, you know, I'm here to protect you, and because he used the language of Magdalene, he was saying Osiris Oberon and Joseph of Arimathea, and connecting to all the Grail stuff, you know, it's just like, weasel your way in, just a little bit more, but they were using him, because he was connected to all that. And he just, you know, would get angry, like, you know, I'm trying to protect you, and you keep fighting me on this, and if you don't come with us, we're going to kidnap you. So anyway, there was some kind of crisis in his life, and he had a friend moving in with him, and we were all, you know, his friend was picking up on what I was, and I said, I just got to get out of here, so I moved down the street, and he still came and visited me. He goes, I have webcams everywhere because I have to protect you. Don't you realize they're following you and everything? And these black SUVs were around, and I was just like, I don't even care, you know, because I'm not going, and that's all there is to it. But he was trying to convince me that I was being protected. So when I was putting my foot down and saying, no, you know, I'm not going to go, finally, they picked up on the fact that I had researched them, and that I busted the fact that they were connected to these technologies. So this whole, we're here to protect you, fell out the window, and then they started to get freaked out. Because then finally, when I could feel like nobody was throwing up anymore, we didn't feel like all like attacked, and because there was weaponry involved. I know that I was being blasted by weaponry, because I was just like, my nervous system and everything was shot, and like I said, I had to go to the hospital once or twice, and still paying off the bill for it. And it was also for dramatic effect. Like, don't you realize I'm in the hospital right now? I mean, The EKG came out fine, but it was the stress too. But I mean, it was ridiculous, kind of the drama going on. And then, but he would get super, super paranoid, like, well, if you're not coming with me, then I think you're on the dark side, and like, then he would turn it all on me. So it just, the drama was unbelievable. So I guess when I felt the attack stop, I realized, okay, now that I'm making it clear, and I'm on the phone, I can hear the click, 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 and I'm making it really loud and clear that I know who these people are, they started to really back off. And then I said, knowing that they were backing off, I said, you know what? Maybe I will be recruited. Because he had mentioned that I could have a handler, right? So I was like, I just wanted to test the waters and see if they knew, because I could feel the attack was gone. At least after a week, I wasn't being attacked. So I said, okay, you know, I'm willing to look into this. And he said, yeah, because you can have a handler like I have. And I was kind of naive at the point, I'm like, handler. And I mean, I knew it had to do with, you know, CIA and stuff like that, because the aviary, you know, is affiliated with them. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll have a handler, and let's do this, you know? And he's just like, just wasn't going to happen. And they all disappeared. And it was because I made it clear that I knew who and they thought that if they'd leave me alone, that maybe I would shut up. And when I met Alfred, that was when I decided to tell the story. And that's when they all started emailing me and trying to befriend me. And they said, well, you know, we did this so you would do your mission on Earth, to scare you. And to wake you up, you know, to what you're really here to do. I go, no, but you know that on my website I've always known what I'm here to do. What do you not see on my website that acts like I don't have a clue? You know, and then you know, and then somebody made it clear that they're definitely more scared of you than you should be of them at this point, and that's why they wanted to drop the whole thing. And a week after I really did break free, that's when Dan Burish had said that the negative timeline of this particular timeline had crumbled, and that it had stopped something pretty good, that I hadn't gone to Mars. And I don't know if it was connected to that, but the timing was such, and I was like, that'd be really cool if it was, because I really don't want these evil things to happen, because it was not going to benefit the human race or anybody, because it wasn't just me, it's others being recruited, it's the effect it would have on everybody, you know, and that's not the agenda, that's not the real agenda. So yeah, they just left me alone, and they've been kind of, you know, they stuck me on threads, and I'd see Alfred, you know, I saw him on a thread or two, and you could tell they just kind of they don't like us, or they kind of want to put us there, and then they forgot to take me off one of the threads, and they're plotting this crop circle. They have the plasma technologies to do crop circles, and they're sitting here, well, we'll do it outside of the White House, and it'll look like this, and I was like, excuse me, you haven't taken me off this thread, you know, like, and yeah, and so a few of them, you know, try and help me, who you know, are still kind of associated, but I can tell they're still being manipulated because they have handlers, but I just kind of play, just because I'm not afraid of them. It's not like I do it intentionally, but I just try and get information out of them at this point, because I do feel, because I don't have any fear of them, that I can freak them out now. It's their turn, you know? And I really do sometimes.
What about Richard? Did he go, or?
No, well, he's still on Earth, and he's, basically the target date was 2012. And it was basically due to the looking glass technologies that they had weren't able to see past 2012, which is different because the teleportation that Andy was involved in was actually able to go past 2012, but this technology, or what they had their hands on, at least it was communicated in email, they weren't able to see anything. And this is what's profound, because the beast computers, they are not, there's something that happens where they can't detect God consciousness. So when the Earth really embodies unity consciousness, those systems aren't able to work anymore, but they have something that might annihilate everybody, just because when they can't detect it anymore, there's some kind of activation button where everything will be destroyed. And some think that when that happens, that's when we ascend, because we're not even going to notice. We're not even going to notice whether we're in these forms or not, because there's infinity. I mean, we're immortal beings. Our souls are immortal. Theirs aren't. That's why they use technology and they time travel to continue to keep their species alive. I mean, when you think about it, the Anunnaki almost died out so many times in history, if one looks at the chronology of the battle between light and dark. But because of these treaties with the government, and because they keep updating their agendas, and they're trying to implement grid technologies, which keeps them alive and in a kind of robotic sort of Terminator type thing, the technologies keep them from having to ascend, because they want to stay immortal and stay on this physical planet, whereas we want to get in touch with these other dimensions. They just want to stay alive, and they want to stay alive right here in these bodies on Earth, but through the use of technology and robotics and stuff. And anyway, these treaties have helped, and the abductions and the harvesting of souls and genetics have helped replenish some of these races that were actually dying out, and time travel has helped them manipulate the timelines in order to do it. But that's fourth dimension and below, and that's not very high dimensional frequency right there. And I guess you mentioned 8th dimension too. Sophia on the feminine level is in the 8th dimension. The demiurge and everything else, the highest of the heavens of that is the 7th, and that's where, you know, the good angels, the ones that we all connect with, would be. The demiurge is more like lower down, but he has dominion over it because it's still encased, in a sense, in that bubble. But we do get purified into like the Ein Sof region if we break the cycle of incarnations and we choose to want to be in that zone. But yeah, she resides outside of that. The demiurge energy, you know, has fallen, you know, into such a pit. But see, the thing is, when there was when the demiurge came about, she was feeling both positive and negatives. So it created the archangels and the archdemons. So the inorganic energies are born of fear. So if you think, okay, you're locked out of your house and you have a moment of fear, imagine birthing a bunch of demons by accident. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, but you know, okay, everything's okay. And then positivity births all these angels. So that's kind of the duality. That's why the 7 heavens and 7 hells are filled with angels and demons. And the whole concept of heaven and hell is filled with the duality of how one reacts when they're in a situation. She was in a crisis, but it was only a small portion of her energy. That's what's called Sophia Akamoth. Pistis Sophia is the one that is going through all the myths to redeem it. Barbalo Sophia is the androgynous cosmic mother frequency that is always there, which is about more the whole portion of her that the bridging of the physical is connecting to. So that's basically our higher chakras. That's when the crown chakra opens up to that, and that's when we anchor heaven on earth, when we reach that. But she's, you know, obviously got different dimensional layers based on that story. And the masculine, of course, does, because the ego nature of feeling like, wow, you know, it came from the creator, so it had a lot of her light. It stole all her light, actually. It's, you know, it's like a vampire. And that fear that he was born from realized, you know, look at this vulnerability, or you know, there was some sort of taking advantage of it and sucking all that light and being able to reenact. I mean, that's why they consider themselves the creator, because in a sense they did create a part of this physical world, but they're not the ultimate, the true creator. And that's the little g and the big G. The little g has created a whole false matrix system that wants to enslave us, that has been tricking us to sort of get us involved in the whole scenario of savior, worship, looking to our leaders and our government to help us with terrorists when they're the ones who are the terrorists. And the worship savior thing is, you know, just their desire to keep us in separation and looking to something else to help us. So that's why the chakra system and understanding the origins of creation help us realize that we're made of all of it, and it's about integration and understanding how to balance it and having equilibrium. That's why the tarot cards help, because they have every archetype. And I hope I answered that okay. What's that?
Which part?
I know I kind of jumped back and heard, but...
You answered it right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So what did we do during this time?
What do we do?
What did we do? This conference was seen, that it was a significant point, and what did we accomplish during this conference?
Well, I mean, I knew before I came that it wasn't just about sharing info. Like, we are co-creating this together. As we speak and as we share, we're moving everything and shifting everything. You know, there's some weird planetary aspects that are going to be coming in next week, Neptune and Mars square, so one's imagination might be filled with all sorts of things, and then the Mars energy is going to kind of like make one feel, there's going to be quite a bit of chaos for some. And it's about like deplugging from the external, because a lot is getting shaken up, not just from this conference, of course, but you know, they're really on to the fact that we're getting it. And they're going to take a step up, and I think there might be an event that happens globally that's going to affect us all. And just the feeling I'm getting is to not even, you know, just to stay really centered. And what we're doing is we're pissing them off. I mean, and the result is going to be to manipulate us and keep us in attachment to the physical. Like, oh, we have to stay alive, and oh, everything is, you know, life and death and doom. It's like, this is just a holographic image of what the health of humanity is. The collective consciousness of humanity is reflected in the outer world and what we're seeing. So if humanity's half asleep, of course we're still going to be attacked. Of course there's still entities out there, because half the world is asleep. So it's really about them waking up. We're already done with that. So any event that happens is a chance for them to see, you know, where it's coming from, what the source is, or, you know, falling prey to the same old paradigm of, oh, what's Obama going to say, you know, and turning to the government. So everything right now is about empowerment. So what this conference represents to me is that we all leave feeling like we have our power, and that we're not being tricked by the physical world, and that we can take it a little bit less seriously and understand that, just like Carl Castaneda said, we're just sharing a particular dimensional dream. The auric body, and the light body stays stuck in this one because there's so much gravity here, but really when we dream at night, we're able to leave and go into other dimensions, and this is just one experience we're sharing together. And we take it so seriously. And another thing is, when we cut ourselves, our bodies know naturally what to do without us having to tell it, like, heal. We might have to, take care of it and maintain it a little bit depending on the injury, but the natural rhythm of nature knows how to heal itself. It's instinctual. So we are acting as healing agents of this planet, so we'll always naturally know what to do as long as we say, I'm a white blood cell, I'm a healing agent, I know what to do when the next injury on Earth happens. I'm not, we're not going to fall into the bacterial infection that some people will, where they're looking, to the wrong treatment from the external world to solve it. And so we have to take it in our hands because we have incredible healing abilities. And so we obviously are effective when the earth is insulted, but we have to understand too that nature knows exactly how to heal itself, how to regenerate. As long as any of us don't fall into victim consciousness, the rhythm and the power and the abilities will just keep on increasing. And it'll launch us where we need to be. We just have to worry about our empathy because that keeps us in the gravity. So much compassion, so much worrying, and so much concern about suffering, even if it's not hitting us close to home, it feels like it is because we care so much. And we just have to give ourselves a break and realize, okay, we're not of this paradigm, but we're here because we care so much. And so when something happens, it's not for us to suffer over, it's for us to help others who are reacting to it see it in a different perspective.
Amen.
I was reflecting on your paradigm alternative 4. 4 is the numerological value of Uranus. And Uranian energy in this context is breaking the old structures and getting out of the box, creating new paradigms. If we're open to it as a mentor or as on a higher level, we will get out of the box. And people who are still attached to that energy at a lower level will just experience disruption and chaos and unpredictability.
Yeah, we should enjoy the chaos. I mean, really, the whole Demiurge energy didn't like the chaos, didn't like the Tiamat, the sea of chaos, and it wanted new world order, it wanted to create order. I mean, right. I think we have to be masters of disaster because, no matter what happens, it's like we get so caught up in, oh, what will other people think, or what does that mean in my life? How's that going to appear? It's like, who cares what anybody thinks? And we are in charge of our experience, and however doesn't matter what happens, it's just, we got to thank our higher self. Like, thanks for manifesting this in my life. Why have a judgment about it? Because we can just flow with it. Uranus is a great planet right now, and the Aquarian age is ruled by Uranus, and it's shaking things up. And Alfred and I often say it's a breakdown that leads to a breakthrough. Every breakdown leads to a breakthrough. Anytime we are insulted or injured or dealing with a difficult situation, we become victims because we think we didn't deserve it or ask for it, or we feel sorry for ourselves. But yet people inflict pain on themselves by their own will when they do things, like climb a mountain and they're in terrible pain, or get a tattoo, or do something where they say, I want pain. But they don't think about it because they ask for it. But if it happens without them asking for it, then they feel like a victim. And so we have to realize that even the most painful situations we ask for, and that we can gain ultimate strength. It's an initiation on a higher level. Just like some of the pain we put ourselves through, even childbirth, even though that doesn't have to be painful, everything that we voluntarily sign up for when it has a relationship to pain, we see as an initiation. We see it as a rite of passage, even in tribal cultures. It's a rite of passage to pierce yourself and hang by your nipples or something. But if it happens without asking for it, then all of a sudden the whole thing is over because we don't trust that something hidden, like our higher self or our unconscious said, you need this to take a step to the next level. And if we could get out of victim consciousness, we would be in great shape, and duality consciousness. And the number 4 also, which is funny, and not that this means much, but 9/29/1973 adds up to 2011, which is my birthday. And so 2011, my numerology is this year. So, and this is the first time I've ever been taken seriously or listened to in my life. What's that?
When is your birthday?
9/29/1973. Yeah.
Okay, well, that brings us right up to dinner time. Are you okay? Ready?
Your great-grandfather was also.
I know.
Yeah, maybe he's with us right now. I hope so.
Great general.